right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for making it here. It's great to see the big crowd. Hopefully, I can adjust to all these things real quick. But just to take a step back and set some context, so a lot of interest around Gen AI, and through the course of the day and yesterday, I'm sure you guys have been hearing a lot about the potential impact of Gen AI. And truly, there's a wide range of numbers out there, right? Some numbers talk about a few $1 trillion in the single digits. There are also some projections that go way beyond that, bigger than the 2 to 3 largest economies in the world. So clearly, there's a lot of excitement, interest. Sometimes, some folks may call it we are still in the hype cycle. Fair enough. But spending the last 7, 8 months really close, not just internally, but with a lot of our customers, one thing I'll say is it's real, right? The impact is real. We can all debate how many $1 trillion of an impact this is going to have, but the impact is going to be real. That much, I think, at least I'm convinced. Maybe I've drank the Kool-Aid, but that's where I am. Now, having said that, though, what's not very clear is how to make it real, right? While the impact is real, we are still all learning as to how to actually make it real and realize the potential. So, over the last few years, I've always been at the intersection of working with customers, product management, and technology. So what I'm going to strive for today is to share some learnings and focus on how collectively we as a team are realizing some of this value and impact, but also hopefully you have some key takeaways along the way. My focus is going to be more at the, somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to spend too much time on going deep into LLMs, nor am I going to talk about strategies. Somewhere in the middle of how to combine the two and, build great stuff with it. So now, just to ground the next part of the conversation, I just wanted to use 3 key, building blocks or pillars. So first and foremost, adoption, right? And typically you would see potential before adoption, but there's a reason why, as I said, we are all this next 20 minutes we'll spend on making things real. So now, I've worked with customers who've actually put stuff out there in probably 2 months and started learning and iterating on stuff real quick. Some of them learned a lot. Some of them went through hiccups and stopped for a while because things didn't work out, whether it's because of compliance or other reasons. But the key point that I just want to emphasize is as much as we're all excited to get stuff done, some aspect of focus that we don't pay as much attention to is, hey, keep the user at the center of it all, right? Focus on not just rollout, build, POCs, trying stuff out, but actually keep the user at the center of everything. So what does that really mean, right? How is it that whatever you're delivering is going to impact their workflow? Everybody's excited when they see something new, but fairly quickly, asking questions in a text prompt gets really old. Trust me. For some of our products, it took users 4 days to say, why am I typing the same thing over and over again, right? Because when you go to ChatGPT to do homeworks, to do PowerPoints, whatever, you're probably interacting with it in very unique ways. But when it comes to enterprises, there's a lot of repetitive stuff. So the whole point is focus on the user, focus on the adoption, and make sure that they are able to get some benefit, but their workflow isn't disrupted too much. So user experience is key, right? That's the key first one. Now, second, as much as there needs to be laser focus on adoption and getting stuff out there, because while transformation can have huge impact, but the last 15 years of Agile have taught us that you need to piecemeal everything, roll it out in bite chunks. But it would be criminal of us not to think about the potential, right? I've seen a lot of teams say, hey, let me roll this one piece out, but then kind of get stalled. And like, what's next? What am I doing with this? Am I just doing 10 more of these smaller bite-sized things? So where I've seen the most success is having a cross-functional team which not just forces the adoption, but also a couple of folks who put that thinking hat on and really understand the pros and cons of the technology, but also then are able to conceptualize where the impact can be created. Those trillions of dollars, there's a big gap from today to there, right? So the only way to get there is by combining and finding the right balance. The balance is going to be different. The split is going to be different for everybody. But really finding the balance between quick adoption, real-world usage, but then thinking big and thinking broad. The last part I just want to spend a bit more time is be responsible, right? A lot of being responsible gets attributed with think about data security, privacy, compliance, all those aspects. Extremely key, really important. You can get into trouble real quick if you're not thinking about that. But it actually goes beyond that, right? Ultimately, there's also a human aspect to it. So be responsible towards the users. Be responsible towards your stakeholders. All too often, in the last 5-6 months, I've seen instances where, whether it's because of, maybe still early days of familiarity with the potential of this technology or just the sheer excitement, there's a lot of overselling happening, right? And it's great to be saying, hey, look at everything we can do, but this is why some of the biggest failures in large transformation projects or AI projects happen, right? You're just doing a lot of overselling. So focus on the value that's created, but also then back it up by pragmatism. So given those three dimensions, I just want to dive into a few more things. Now, everybody is doing something or the other with, with Gen AI. If you as an enterprise or a company hasn't done something, you're probably in the minority. Whether it's an enterprise-wide initiative or a shadow IT, whatever it may be, people are trying it out, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of initial things that are gravitating or surfacing up to the top. And I just wanted to touch upon a few. Now, knowledge management. There's ton of, two of the key kinds of data that come into play a lot when you're talking Gen AI is dark data or exhaust, right? So what's dark data? For anybody who's done some data mining stuff, it's essentially data that exists everywhere, but it's not easy to access, it's not easy to work with, which is what a lot of non-structured data has been, or unstructured data has been, typically, right? Things have changed, evolved over the last few years, but it's still in that territory. Now, knowledge management, tons of potential to optimize how somebody is doing, right from accessing HR policy to, hey, how do I, which we'll just play a quick demo later today, is how do I optimize a call center agent's workflow by surfacing up contextual information and pushing it to them. Now, this is not just about search for information, it's also about push. So going back to the adoption versus potential, while you definitely should roll out capabilities that allow easier access to some of these data sources, but you also should think about how, in the big picture, extrapolating out to the next couple of years, you can actually create bigger impact by not just thinking about a search interface, but pushing this information at the right time to the right user in the right context, right? So that's how we are thinking about knowledge management, early days, but huge applicability. Architecturally, just wearing the technical hat, if you really peel the onion here, this also looks very similar in the underlying building blocks, right? So this is where the other opportunity is starting to arise. While most folks are still focused on, okay, how do I deliver the first few things in production, or are actually realizing some value there. But one of the key trends that I see that's changing with this wave is the ability to adapt to change, right? And let me just expand. I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, the model life cycle was huge, right? Anywhere between 4 to 6 months to about 12 to 18 months, depending on whether you're in a regulated industry or not. What's changing now is businesses are asking for almost 30, 40, 50 use cases to be delivered next year. That's not going to happen unless you start thinking broader and bigger and apply a platform thought process, right? Because you need basic building blocks. So a couple of these ultimately behind the scenes use the exact same building blocks. So for all the technologists in the room, it's the opportunity to start identifying those and creating those reference architectures such that you can roll stuff out much quicker. Use case 1 may be expensive and long, use case 2 may be, but 3, 4, 5, you should start seeing the benefit. Now, just a show of hands, how many folks have done any of these things and put something in production? I'm just curious. You don't get such a big audience and a free serve. All right. So at least one of these in production? Okay. One of these in development or POC. Okay, slightly bigger show of hands. So now, the only point I just want to make here is the spectrum at the top, right? There's the internal-facing stuff. There's the bucket in the middle where you're interacting with some of a customer base of yours, and then the customer-facing stuff, right? Now, so this is just, I'm just going to throw a couple of caution tales out there. So one of our customers directly jumped to the right-hand side, right? So what's the problem there? Now, when we talk about use case prioritization, one of the key things we talk about is ability to account for error. Gen AI, while it's extremely powerful, but it's still a bunch of models just predicting the next likely token, and it can get stuff wrong. It does get stuff wrong. So be extremely careful when you're going on that right-hand side extreme, right? Make sure that you're learning from the left-hand side and then going to towards the other end of the spectrum. Going there too early can expose you to not just bad user experience, but also, in one instance that I've seen, to also legal and compliance issues. Now, just to help how to break this down, there's a lot of these frameworks out there, but what's worked from a use case prioritization for at least 2-3 dozen customers that I've seen is these multiple dimensions, right? So identify something that's manual. In this, we've gone through a lot of digitization, digital transformation, but there's still tons of processes out there that are heavy in manual steps. Not all of them, but a significant amount. Difficult to automate. Now, whether it's because of technology or just because of user adoption, that's another dimension to consider. Is there a lot of unstructured data? Now, this isn't like, hey, do I have gigs and petabytes of text data to go do something with? It's actually, need to think bigger is, do you have historical context? If you're looking to go do something with text, but do you still have people who worked with it before, and have you captured what the results of those interactions were? That just gives you a leg up, as opposed to just having loads of volume, right? So that's the key distinction I just want to make there. Is there significant cost or revenue impact? Well, it's great if it does have that, but this is also where it can also be a pitfall, right? Because that upselling, overselling happens, and then large projects just fail. So you need to find the right balance. And then finally, exposure to regulatory risk. It's amazing how even in some of the biggest banks in the world today, a lot of the regulatory compliance stuff has heavy manual processes in there, right? So while you may not be able to improve the top line, bottom line in some ways, but are you reducing your exposure to risk? Fines. So map this out. Prioritization for everybody is going to be different. Add in the availability of data, the familiarity with the tech, but think on these lines. Now, the final structure to think about, to break this down a bit further, is when you talk about, well, this applies to AI, not just to Gen AI, but at the very foundation is infrastructure. Won't spend too much time there. Most people should be familiar with that. The only thing I'm going to highlight and call out is, working with GPUs, running your own open source models is going to take you 4x, 5x more time than what you anticipate. It's not going to be that easy. It's going to be way more expensive initially than you anticipate. So be prepared for that, right? Be pragmatic when you're signing up to say, hey, we'll get this done in so-and-so time. That's the only thing I'll throw out there. Core models, foundation models, you probably keep hearing about this ad nauseum. Right from OpenAI to the Llamas to the Coheres. But have two different approaches. While you can look at a broad set of models, foundation models, but start zeroing in on a couple that you can actually do something with. There is no substitute for still having a strong data foundation. Now, everybody's gone through tons of data transformation, building out data platforms, all of that, but you still have to keep improving that muscle by having to now learn about certain new data types, new data systems, vector databases. How do they even work? How do you operationalize that, right? So if you have that cross-functional team, make sure that people are getting ahead and not just thinking about how do I code with these, but also how do I better run these in production. Then at the top, of course, then the business applications come in. So you're working with product managers, business stakeholders. But the change that's happening, or at least one of the key things that I'm realizing as I look at what it takes to speed up the delivery of these solutions, is the stuff at the top, right? The improvement loop. In the past, we could take a couple more months to really build a better model. While there's nothing called a perfect model is too late, is what we've always believed. But what's changing is, with Gen AI, you're not going to get to the levels of accuracy that you're typically used to, right? How are you going to improve? Just by putting something out there, learning, iterating, and building on top of it. If you bank on the thought process that you would be able to do this all manually, you're in for a big, big surprise, right? So the focus there is not just how do you have a human in the loop who's giving you that feedback, but also how are you automating the capture and potential application of that feedback. So again, applying that platform thought process of how do I scale the building of these solutions, that's part of the orientation that you need to have as a larger team. Now, extrapolating out a little bit more, while this is where we are today, but a bunch of our customers are also getting there, is how do I make this platform thinking real, right? So there's a few key building blocks. Of course, you need a workbench. You need the right capabilities where you can work with and develop all these applications, experiment with the right models, and then finally, whether it's fine-tuning, whether it's validation, have a collaborative place where not just a couple of folks are able to work, but the larger organization is also able to come in and see how stuff is done. Because that truly starts snowballing over a period of time. So collaboration and an environment where that collaboration is encouraged is key. Security compliance, LLMs have, while everybody, I think, finally got over SQL injection, for whoever still remembers that, but LLMs bring all kinds of new attacks to the table. So security compliance is key. Are you going to go buy a product? Are you going to go scan for PII and apply filters as you're training or tuning stuff, as you're asking questions, as you're getting responses? Whatever it is that you choose to do, think about it. Make sure that you're considering it and understanding the impact of that. Plug-and-play accelerators, fine-tuning is going to get a big pain, so automate it, write up the simple scripts. And then finally, human in the loop, capture as much context as you can. It's not just a thumbs up, thumbs down, but what were they doing? What happened at that? It's basic applying the thought process of product analytics and instrumentation and saying, let me understand what the user was doing and why it didn't work. Only then can you improve it later, right? And then, of course, the data foundation that I talked about, connectors, creating these databases easily, embedding, being able to work with a lot of embedding techniques. So collectively, while there could be more that you may discover along the way, but this is how we're realizing, not just building out some of these POCs and putting a couple of these things in production, but actually scaling the build of this. So now, kind of going back a few steps and to those 3 pillars that I was talking about, one of the things, and the reason to put this up here is this was actually one of the first things that we built, and it's not as much of, hey, look what we built. It's more about how did we approach the build of this, right? It's so we've had this product for a while, but we just ran into a customer who was needing to deal with a set of calls which was pretty sensitive in nature, right? Required a lot of empathy. So we used GenAI. If you can play the video, please. Yeah. Now, we use GenAI.
And effectiveness of the call. For the purpose of this demo, you will be listening into a mock call and how Smart Agent platform is powered by generative AI works.
Hi, you've been connected to Utility Collections team. My name is Jessica, and I'll be happy to assist you today. May I have your account number, please?
1234567
All right, and could you just confirm your full name and date of birth?
Kate Harding, 1st of June, 1990.
Perfect. And how about your full address?
101 Leslie Street, AD01QA.
All right. And lastly, please confirm if your email address is still kate7499926@gmail.com.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I do see there's an outstanding balance of 1,011 pounds and 11 pence. Are you calling to make a payment today?
Unfortunately, I have no income whatsoever at the moment. I'm actually due to give birth on Friday, and my husband lost his job. I'm obviously not working because I'm about to give birth, so I'm just in a very difficult position right now.
Congratulations on your pregnancy. And I'm really sorry to hear about your financial situation, Ms. Harding. Let's see how we can best help you today. Will an alternate payment plan or maybe a switch to pay-as-you-go meter work for you?
Sorry, that won't work either since my husband has put out a couple of applications, but he hasn't heard back. And if there's no gas and electricity in my house, it will be very tough to care for my newborn.
Oh, I see. Well, given your circumstances, I recommend that you contact Step Change for assistance.
Okay, I'll do that.
I can send you an email regarding Step Change and a few other organizations that might be able to help here. As for process, I'll put your account on a 30-day temporary hold with the hopes that your financial situation will improve.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And since you're expecting a child, I recommend that we register you for Priority Services Register, or PSR. Essentially, you would be prioritized to get power back first in the event of power failure, and there are a few other benefits too. Also, there's no extra charge for PSR.
Oh,
I think we
okay,
could
thank
just
you. That would
pause
be
it.
really
Yeah.
helpful.
So now, there was a lot going on there, right? But let me just kind of summarize. A lot of that, what you saw up there, we had it being used by a lot of our customers in some fashion or the other already, and for a few years, right? But the approach we took is instead of saying, hey, here's the one big killer app where all the focus is on GenAI at the center, the thought process was, let's piecemeal different aspects of where we can give those small productivity impact for now in the beginning, because this is what we can show publicly now. Still, we've evolved quite a bit. But then create that impact real quick, right? This was probably within the first 3 months of us starting to, play around with GenAI a lot more. And I won't go into too many of the numbers, but you can just see some of that last row, the before and after. So the whole thought process is, while you understand the potential here, but be really focused and pragmatic in where small changes can have bigger impacts, allow you to learn, and then build on top of it, right? So that's the whole message we just wanted to convey.